Hey everyone, today we're going to do something a little different. I am autistic. Some of you who actually actively watch this channel may have pieced that together. And today I'm going to look at 12 characters, fictional characters I should clarify, who display signs of autism or are outright confirmed to have it, and try to judge how realistic the portrayals are. Before we start, I'd like to state for the record that I am in no way an expert on the subject. I am just someone who has it. So, I sincerely apologize in advance if I get anything wrong. For those who are wondering, I'm on the part of the spectrum that used to be called Asperger's, but is now just part of the spectrum. I also have ADHD, which was a wonderful cocktail to grow up with, because there are traits in either one that kind of contradict each other, so that was fun. In the interest of getting things right, I've pulled bits from articles about these particular portrayals, and also did my best to verify that anything factual is actually correct. And I'm going to link those articles in the description. There is one of them in particular that I had trouble pulling up, but if you put it in the Wayback Machine, it works just fine. And I should clarify, I am using these articles purely for factual information. Any opinions I express are either mine or opinions that they expressed that I agree with. So technically, they're still my opinions. Before we dive in, I'm going to put out a spoiler alert, because I'm going to dig into spoilers with pretty much all of these. So, you've been warned. I'm going chronologically here, so we're starting back in the 90s. Leonardo DiCaprio's portrayal of Arnie Grape, which was his fourth film role, earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor at the age of 19. And yet it took him 20 years to actually get an Oscar. Go figure. Arnie has classic autism, which is, well, what the average person thinks of when they hear autism. His disorder is a burden on the rest of his family, as his repetitive activity is trying to climb the town's water tower.
Arnie! Not again! Arnie!
Up there.
Get down! Get down! Get down! You're not going anywhere! It's not too much fun, is it?
I don't want to go up there.
No!
Arnie's older brother Gilbert is forced to get him down pretty much every day so that the 19-year-old Arnie doesn't get arrested. Later in the film, when Arnie and Gilbert's mother dies, he is the first one to find her, and largely because of his autism, he doesn't get it. He thinks she's pretending, and he keeps asking her to stop.
You're hiding, huh? I know that. Pick up. Mama, wake up.
And eventually he figures out something's wrong and is tearing up, but continues asking her to cut it out. Like, that, as basically implying that he is in the denial stage of grief.
Mama, stop it now. Stop, Mama. Stop it.
Autism is not explicitly mentioned in this film, but experts tend to agree that his traits align with those of classic autism. He displays repetitive movements, echolalia, which is the meaningless repetition of another person's spoken words, kind of like a parrot, self-injurious behaviors, use of unusual speech, preference for routine, his childlike nature, and just general lack of danger perception in his fondness for climbing the town water tower. These are all pretty strong indicators that Arnie is, in fact, on the spectrum, and this is one of the few fictional characters who is autistic but is not portrayed as some kind of savant, so, you know, that's refreshing. For those of you who don't know, savant syndrome is when a person with an existing mental illness is highly skilled in one or more specific areas. For example, Crash Bandicoot is actually an example of an autistic savant. He has underdeveloped social skills, but he's also a skilled athlete and puzzle solver. I haven't played the games, so I'm not going to be getting into him. I just thought that was a fun little bit of trivia. What's Eating Gilbert Grape also takes a more lighthearted approach at times to Arnie's eccentricities. His lack of a filter delivers some of the biggest laughs in the movie, which allows us to see the more humorous side of autism.
Groceries. I got them, okay? Oh, no, Arnie. Oh, no.
Sorry. Really sorry.
It's okay, don't worry about it.
No, I'm really sorry. This is all...
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. Are you sorry? No, I'm not sorry. He's not sorry. We're not sorry. Don't be sorry.
I'm not sorry.
Yes, it is challenging, but it's not all doom and gloom. I don't have classic autism. I don't think I've met anyone who is confirmed to have this particular type of autism, but I've met some people who show signs of it, and from what I can recall, this portrayal is pretty much spot on. As far as a rating, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. Dr. Spencer Reid, a member of the FBI's Fictional Behavioral Analysis Unit, is a perfect example of someone with what was previously known as Asperger's, but is now... Well, okay, it's still known as Asperger's, but it used to be like a separate thing, I think, and now it's just part of the autism spectrum. He is a genius. He is the youngest member of the BAU. He has an IQ of 187. He has BAs and 3 PhDs. And he has a photographic memory which lets him read 20,000 words per minute.
They had self-defense training?
Yeah, I insisted on it. The protective detail rankled when they hit puberty, and I was sure that they would refuse their bodyguards when they left for college. Excuse me, can you actually read that fast?
Our conscious minds can process 16 bits of information per second. Our unconscious, however, can process 11 million. Yes, I can actually read this fast.
As a result of this disability, he is socially awkward, but when he connects with someone, that connection gets very strong very fast. Throughout the show, Reid shows a general lack of interest in interacting with women in any sort of romantic capacity, with one exception. At one point, he begins talking to a mysterious woman exclusively using payphones. To the point where in one episode, he has to ask the person he's in the car with, hey, could we find a payphone? I need to call someone. And they actually have to it takes them a few minutes to find one, because payphones aren't really a thing anymore. He eventually reveals to the team that her name is Maeve. She has been helping him with certain cases, and she is in hiding because she has a stalker. After several months of this, he offers to have the BAU help, but she refuses because she doesn't want the stalker to hurt Reid. She ends the phone call by telling him she loves him, which leaves him shocked and speechless. A little bit later, he says, and I think he's right, that it was like a Freudian slip, a slip of the tongue. Like she meant it, but she didn't mean to say it. Later, he discovers she has been kidnapped by her stalker, and eventually the BAU discovers that said stalker is the new girlfriend of Maeve's ex-fiancé. They finally track her down, and Reid and Maeve meet face-to-face for the first time. He talks to the stalker, and he offers to take Maeve's place. But instead, the stalker kills herself and Maeve with one shot. Reid is devastated, and he spends like 2 or 3 weeks alone in his apartment following this. And the team is there for him. They are trying to help. He just refuses to answer the door. He does eventually return to the team, obviously. I relate to Reid a lot. A few years ago, I reconnected with a woman. I knew her back in like elementary school, like 5th grade. I had a huge crush on her at the time. And a few years ago, we reconnected over Facebook. And I was very surprised to learn that the feeling was mutual. At the time, at least. It would have been like 15 years since then, give or take, but still, that was like, oh! I do remember being in 5th grade and thinking I saw signs that maybe she felt the same way, but never acted on them because I was fucking 10. But yeah, relatable. I'm gonna give this one an 8 out of 10. Here's one you might not have expected. Maurice Moss of the IT Crowd is not one of the best known portrayals of ASD on television, but he's probably one of the best and most well-researched. He is likable, funny, and absolutely brilliant, but still socially awkward. Refreshingly, he often embraces his self-proclaimed weirdness, and finds ways to appreciate the things that make him different.
Just promise me we won't do anything else with them. I want to go back to being weird. I like being weird. Weird's all I've got. That and my sweet style.
Okay, look, we'll make our excuses when the match is over. How long do football matches last?
1 billion hours, apparently.
He's not the butt of the joke, he's part of the joke.
Now let's see what we have here. Stand upright. Now I can't read it. Oh, not me. I am a giddy goat. Okay. Remove safety clip.
Don't look at my feet!
Fire. Fire. No. Aim nozzle at base of fire. That is typical. Why has it done that?
Geeks out over things that most people don't? Check. Often misses the point of what people are saying? Check. Highly skilled in a particular area? Check. Oblivious to sarcasm and people hitting on him? Check and check. A nuanced portrayal of someone on the spectrum? You bet your ass. I'm giving this one the full 10. This is a fantastic portrayal. Next up is the titular protagonist from Lars and the Real Girl. This is a quirky indie film starring Ryan Gosling, and we are given plenty of reasons why Lars is a little bit different. His mother died giving birth to him, his antisocial father blames him for her death, his older brother left the family at a young age, etc. However, there are a number of people in the autistic community who have insisted that Lars is autistic. For one, he compares being touched to an excruciating burn-like sensation, which, yeah, I don't experience that personally, but I am well aware that there are other autistic people who do. And he continuously rejects offers of social interaction, which, for better or worse, I have done in the past. And whether artistic or not, he forces his fellow characters and the audience to face what exactly it means to be different, and that all of their individual differences actually make us all quite normal.
She asked me not to be sad, but I can't help it.
Yeah, me neither.
But it'll get better with time, and that's what everyone keeps saying, so.
It's true. I think, in a way. But there'll never be anybody like her.
Also, delusions aren't part of autism, so if he is autistic, he definitely has something else on top of that. But apart from that, yeah. For this one, I think I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It's not confirmed, so that knocks it down a peg. But it's still, assuming he is autistic, then it's a pretty good portrayal. So I will give it a 6 out of 10. While most characters on the autism spectrum have an obsession with, say, math, or science, or a specific activity, Abed Nadir is infatuated with pop culture, of all things. Abed is never officially diagnosed in the show, but at one point Jeff straight up says that he has Asperger's, and I think he's right.
You know, I thought you were like Bill Murray in any of his films, but you're more like Michael Douglas in any of his films.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, you have Asperger's.
Friendship and other relationships are a major theme of the show, and as someone on the spectrum, I really appreciate the portrayal of Abed's ability to show empathy and form meaningful relationships in spite of and or because of his disability. When I watch Community, I relate to Abed a lot. It definitely helps that the showrunner himself is autistic. And like some of the other portrayals here, his friendship with Troy is a great example of how, when people on the spectrum make a connection, it gets very strong, very fast. I'm going to give this one a 10 out of 10. This is a fantastic portrayal. Next, we have another Ryan Gosling character, the driver from Drive. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but the driver has some behaviors and mannerisms that definitely come off as autistic. He is a highly skilled auto mechanic who makes himself available to criminals as a getaway driver, and spends the entire film practically mute, both vocally and physically. Gosling's face remains guarded and not very expressive pretty much throughout the whole movie. However, do not mistake this for bad acting. It's just part of it. His subtle behaviors, an inability to negotiate without getting agitated, his perfect memorization of the LA street grid, and so on and so forth, they contribute to an interesting character who very likely falls somewhere on the spectrum. I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. This is pretty solid, but not outright confirmed. Autism is never mentioned in any of these movies, but in the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo novel, Mikhail wonders to himself if Lisbeth has Asperger's. It's never outright confirmed, it's never been a diagnosis, but she definitely shows signs. She's very goal-oriented. Once she has a goal, it's very hard for her to stop pursuing it.
He also says that you're the one he goes to when the job is, sensitive. That's the word he used, sensitive. I'm going to use illegal, because that's what it was when you hacked into my computer. And I'm not going to do anything about that. I could, but I won't. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a story, and if it entertains you, maybe you'll decide to help me research further. And if not, I'll do the washing up and you'll never see me again. You know, you should eat that.
What kind of research?
Lisbeth. Oh, can I call you Lisbeth? I want you to help me catch a killer of women.
But the biggest evidence for me is the main reason I relate to her so much. She often avoids social contact and therefore comes off as antisocial, but when she forms a social connection with someone like Mikhail, it forms faster for her than it does for him, and she feels closer to him than he does to her. It's likely why she's so quick to jump his bones while he's caught off guard by how quickly things are progressing. At the end, at least in Fincher's version, she's hoping their relationship can continue.
It's nice.
Your father?
A friend?
Must be a very good friend.
But he's already gone back to his old life, and she realizes that she misjudged their relationship. If I had $1 for every time I felt closer to someone than they felt to me, I might not need a Patreon. But I digress. This is a solid portrayal, never confirmed, but I'm still going to give it 7 out of 10. Next up, we have a twofer. Drax is narrow-minded and slightly apathetic. However, in the background of pretty much every scene, it is possible to see him reacting to what's going on in his own Drax way. This just shows that he's not completely devoid of feelings, he just struggles to express them. This is all too common. Even with reflexes as fast as Drax, it can often feel impossible for people on the spectrum to grasp the words which accurately describe our emotions. I am all too familiar with that experience. Drax is a jerk, but the reason behind why he does what he does is clear. He wants revenge for the death of his family, and he has spent years killing and destroying anything related to Ronan and Thanos to do so. I mean, hey, everyone needs a hobby. Although this can be perceived as an autistic person's obsession causing harm to people around them, Guardians of the Galaxy makes it clear that Drax is often just as much a victim of his actions as anyone else, if not more so.
Ronan the Accuser! You are the one who transmitted the message? You killed my wife. You killed my daughter!
One reason why Guardians stands out as a particularly great example of autism in film is because it has a diverse representation of the spectrum. Yes, Dave Bautista as Drax does loosely fit the aesthetic profile of a stereotypical autistic person, being a white male. However, he also smashed that stereotype right back by being the complete opposite of what has been referred to as a typical Hollywood Poindexter. He has social difficulties and, not the highest IQ. He's not the brightest bulb in the tree. Plus, Dave Bautista has both Greek and Filipino ancestry, so that's gotta count for something. However, what really makes the diversity in Guardians of the Galaxy stand out is when, in the sequel, we are introduced to another character with autistic tendencies, Mantis. What makes Mantis an incredible addition to the movies and to this portrayal of the different types of autism is that her autistic traits set her up to depict a completely different end of the spectrum from Drax. Mantis is shown to very clearly understand emotions to the point that it's literally her superpower. However, she struggles to interpret them in context. Like Drax, she takes pretty much everything literally, but whereas he is literal in his understanding of words, she takes everything she is told as truth. Not unlike the aliens from Galaxy Quest, come to think of it. For example, she smiles unnaturally wide when she meets new people because she has been told that this is the thing to do to make people like you. It probably goes without saying, but if Mantis was intended to be autistic, which I'm pretty sure she was, then she is also a rare case of a female example in film, something which few movies have ever attempted without once again slipping into the generic Hollywood savant.
I am hideous?
You are horrifying to look at, yes. But that's a good thing.
Oh?
When you're ugly and someone loves you, you know they love you for who you are. Beautiful people never know who to trust.
For both of these, I'm going to give them an 8 out of 10. These are, again, it's never outright confirmed, but the subtext seems pretty clear to me. So, 8 out of 10 on both counts. In 2016's The Accountant, Ben Affleck plays Christian Wolff, the answer to the question, who would a mob boss call if they thought someone was cooking the books? He is a small-town certified public accountant who actually makes his living uncooking the books of dangerous criminal organizations around the world that are experiencing internal embezzlement. Wolff outright states that he has high-functioning autism, which is a term applied to autistic people who have higher cognitive function than other autistic people. Say, Arnie Grape, for example.
Your life is unique.
It's not unique. I have a high-functioning form of autism, which means I have an extremely narrow focus and a hard time abandoning tasks once I've taken them up. I have difficulty socializing with other people, even though I want to.
Arnie would be more a case of low-functioning autism. High-functioning autism is similar to Asperger's, but they're not exactly the same. The amount of overlap isn't fully known, only that they're highly similar but not the same. As such, Christian Wolff is extremely intelligent. He's an expert sharpshooter and also an excellent accountant. He is socially awkward. He outright states that he doesn't use sarcasm, and it's unclear if he's able to recognize it. When he does connect with someone, that bond becomes very strong very fast, and that person quickly becomes important to him. This is first shown when an older couple seeks him out for accounting help, unaware that his usual clients are, well, criminals. He could turn them away and recommend them to a different accountant, but instead, out of the kindness of his heart, and also because they're paying him, he helps them and even offers some, not gonna say it out loud because that would be against the rules, advice on fudging their numbers a little bit to get more money back from their taxes and whatnot.
Your home is 2,913 square feet. IRS code allows us to deduct from your taxable income a percentage of your workspace relative to your overall home.
What?
Mr. Rice, how big is your dining room? Mrs. Rice's office.
I wouldn't so much as call it an office.
It's approximately 200. Well, make it 300 square feet.
Excellent. Mrs. Rice?
Dolores.
Dolores, when you order supplies, do you order online?
I don't. I just zip on over to the bead store.
Zip?
I drive. The truck.
The company truck.
For the help, they invite him to their farm. I think it was to fish or something. So he says, I don't fish, which would imply he's not interested, but then he says, I shoot, which is like, I don't do this. I'm not interested in that, but... And sure enough, we then see him sniping melons on their property with a .50 caliber sniper rifle. And I would also like to point out, this is a rare instance of that type of a weapon being portrayed accurately. The bullets are supersonic, which means they hit the target before you hear the gunshot, and that's something a lot of movies get wrong, but I digress. During the film, Christian learns that his former cellmate, who basically took him in and mentored him and taught him how to be an accountant, has been tortured to death by the Gambino crime family. Christian goes full anti-hero, breaks out of prison, tracks down the Gambinos to one of their hideouts, and kills them single-handedly with their own weapons. And to make sure that you don't mistake him for a heartless killer, he also spares the life of a detective who had been staking out the Gambinos at the time. And this comes back later. Probably the best portrayal of autism in this movie comes in a flashback to Christian's childhood. They are visiting a place put together by a man. Basically, it's like a safe space for autistic people. It's not like a full-time residence. It's just like the kids can spend time there and get the help they need. And this takes place in 1989. So that is very progressive for 1989, and I wish there were more people like that in real life. While Christian's parents are talking to the owner, Christian is putting together a puzzle and being watched by a girl who appears to be far more non-functional. She is rocking in her seat, twitching, moaning. There seems to be several different types of stimming going on. First of all, to show his intellect, he's completing the puzzle upside down, going purely based on the shapes of the pieces.
Do you like puzzles, Mr. Wolff?
Do I?
But just as he's about to complete the puzzle, he realizes a piece of missing. And it is absolutely true that people on the spectrum, myself included, can absolutely flip their shit when things don't work the way they should. In Christian's case, he needs to finish something he starts, kind of like Lisbeth from Girl with Dragon Tattoo. And Christian, having a grand total of one coping mechanism in place, which is reciting the nursery rhyme Solomon Grundy, proceeds to have a violent and thoroughly predictable meltdown.
We need to finish! We need to finish! Solomon Grundy! Burn on Monday! Crescent on Tuesday! Ryan on Wednesday! Sleep on Thursday! Rest on Friday! Dead on Saturday! Burn on Sunday! We need to finish! Solomon Grundy! Burn on Monday! Crescent on...
That meltdown comes to a sudden end when the seemingly low-functioning girl presents him with the missing puzzle piece.
Saturday.
That, right there, is the mission statement of this movie and the sequel. What society sees as broken may have it more together than they think. And not in the cloying, faux philosophical, and deeply patronizing, well, they're have more humanity than us normals, makes you think, huh? Kind of way. Christian grows into self-sufficiency thanks to his father's efforts, but we also learned that that same father saw him as damaged goods. In his words, different. Different is one of those turns of phrase that isn't really wrong, but it is almost exclusively used in a cruel to be kind sort of way. At one point, Christian openly admits to Dana that he wishes he better understood how to connect with people. But before that moment, you never see him making any attempts because between the work he does and the lessons from his father, he always assumes he's going to lose or fail. In one scene, Ben Affleck perfectly captures the way we tend to get really excited when we find something super interesting with our hyper-narrow focus. In another, he nails the way we melt down whenever certain expectations we hold are completely upended, trying to control his panic at first, only to become gradually unhinged to the point where his usual coping mechanisms fail him. More impressively, though, he has this distant, wandering look in his eyes whenever he's idle that gives the author of the article that I pulled from, and also myself, the impression that Christian Wolff really does view life through a unique and eerily familiar lens. Most importantly, this movie fully averts the disability superpower trope. Wolff's autism does make him hyper-focused, excellent at pattern recognition and math, which makes him a great accountant, and also able to remain calm under fire. However, the skills in combat actually come from the training from hell he went through courtesy of his father, and we know this to be true because his non-autistic brother, who received the same training he did, is shown to be just as effective as he is. I originally started writing this back before The Accountant 2 was even announced or at least confirmed, and I'm delighted to report that this accurate portrayal has continued into the sequel. We see more of how Christian interacts with other people. Early on, someone else has to suggest that he thank his brother for coming to help.
So it's been a minute. Braxton, thank you for coming. I'm really glad you're here. Did she tell you to say that? Yeah.
And because he has a desire to connect with people, and also because he means it, he later does it completely unprompted. There's a genuinely funny bit, which also reestablishes his desire to connect with people, where he attempts speed dating, of all things. And not only that, he straight up reverse engineers the algorithm to make his own, then optimizes his profile to get the highest possible number of matches.
What do you mean you reverse engineered our algorithm?
By tokenizing your questions in an embedding matrix and generating a predictive model for the most effective answers, which I provided.
It doesn't work, but the effort he put into it is commendable. Now, before we move on to the next one, I want to talk about Justine for a minute. Huge spoilers if you haven't seen the first movie. Remember the seemingly low-functioning little girl who helped Christian finish his puzzle? Well, at the end of the first movie, it's revealed that decades later, she is not only still his close friend...
Justine's computer, it's a BX32. Water-cooled, 12-core?
Oh, that's right, you're a software engineer. Well, some of our donors are more generous than others. Why, is that a good computer? Good.
Doc, she could backdoor the Pentagon with that rig.
She is his person in the chair, the voice with the internet connection who talks to him on the phone.
What's the difference between dressy casual and business casual?
Both mean leave your cargo shorts and flip-flops at home.
I don't own cargo shorts. I don't own flip-flops. Anything else?
Don't wear your black suit. It makes you look like a mortician.
And throughout the film, there are hints at this, like the fact that she will outright say heavy sigh instead of just sighing. It initially comes off as a verbal tick, but it's actually because she is mute and she uses a text-to-speech program to communicate.
Hello, Dreamboat. Shall we chat? Good morning, Dreamboat. Could we discuss business now?
Go.
Justine is another rare example of female autism, and she is unique, I think, among cinematic portrayals in that her disability has rendered her completely mute, which is a type of autism. There are people on the spectrum who their version of autism renders them mute. It's not that their vocal cords don't work, it's that their brains just don't function that way. In the first movie, like I mentioned, Justine is portrayed as having these awkward, jerky movements, likely as a form of stimming. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a time when I was prone to overt displays of stimming like that. Since then, I have thankfully learned to keep it more subtle, like just cracking my knuckles or drumming my fingers. Part of that comes from ADHD and just fidgeting, but it is also an autistic thing. By the sequel, these jerky movements are nearly absent. Not completely gone, they're still kind of there, but they're more subtle. Justine is showing moving around much more fluidly and confidently. Now, this could just be the result of her being recast between movies and the new actress having a different physical portrayal, but I choose to interpret it as the result of almost a decade of therapy actually helping her. There is no cure for autism, but there are treatments and therapies that can make it easier to live with. And real quick, before I move on, I want to talk about Anais. This movie expands its mental health themes to include something called acquired savant syndrome. This is a rare mental disorder in which someone who has suffered a traumatic brain injury ends up acquiring new skills seemingly out of nowhere because in the process of attempting healing, the brain develops new connections. And this is, in fact, a real thing. It's kind of rare, but it's a real thing. I'm not going to go in depth about it because my knowledge is minimal and I have zero experience with it. I just thought it was worth mentioning. And as for portrayals, I've never met anyone whose autism rendered them mute, but I am aware that it is a thing. And all of Justine's other symptoms are perfectly in line, and Christian is about as pitch perfect a portrayal as you're going to get in a movie, so I'm going to give them both a 10 out of 10. Next up is probably the most important example on this list, a superhero who is outright confirmed to be autistic. Drax and Mantis are superheroes, but their autism is never confirmed. It's all just largely subtext and speculation. Billy Cranston from the 2017 Power Rangers is outright confirmed. Billy Cranston, in this version, the Blue Ranger, narrates his thoughts out loud. He reveals things that most people would deem to be deeply personal secrets during small talk, and he sometimes chases tangents during conversations, which anyone who has actively followed my channel and actively watches my stuff will know I am prone to doing from time to time. Both when he is explaining his autism to Jason and when he meets Zordon, the powerful being who trains the Power Rangers, he introduces himself and then goes on about how he got his embarrassing nickname. However, Billy is also loyal, kind, he is effortlessly funny, and he takes people at face value. He tries to see the best in them. He is the heart of the team, the empathetic glue that holds the Rangers together, which is why his death midway through the movie hits so hard in spite of the fact that he gets resurrected a few minutes later.
Hey, you got this, big guy, come on.
He's dead. He's dead.
He is the heart of the team, and so it hurts. He is the one who indirectly calls the team together, and the film actually foreshadows this near the beginning when Billy organizes his rainbow array of pencils by their color. He's the one who accidentally discovers the power coins, which give them their superpowers, and he is the first one to morph.
Just stop fighting, please!
What?
That's dope.
What? I got something on my face. Yeah. Oh! Okay, now that's cool!
He wears his heart on his sleeve. From the earliest moments of the film, we learn that Billy is on the spectrum when he straight up admits it to Jason. One moment that really touched me during this conversation is Billy telling Jason that my brain doesn't work with yours, and Jason just says, that's not a bad thing. Yes, more of that, please. This is a very common experience for myself and others on the spectrum, and it's a shining moment in this movie. Our brains may be wired differently, but we all have a longing to connect with others in some way. It may not be obvious at times, but I can relate to his desire for friends, as someone else who grew up socially awkward. And there are other signs of Billy's autism as well. The compulsive need to have everything lined up, like the pencils on his desk, feeling uncomfortable being touched by others, even his inability to recognize sarcasm. He also has a very good mind for numbers, and he is able to indicate different dates and times that certain situations happened, which indicates that he also has a really good memory. And as for portrayals, I don't know. I'm going to give this one a 9. This is a very, very, very good portrayal. All right. Next up, we have Rory McKenna from The Predator. The article I found while researching this movie is entitled "The Predator: Autism is Magic." And I think that about sums it up. This isn't a terrible portrayal of autism. It gets a lot of things right. The problem is that it comes off as extremely tone-deaf. This movie portrays autism as a magical superpower, and some characters even speculate that it could be the next step in human evolution. Oh shit! Which is laughable. Rory's autism somehow allows him to access alien technology. Now, granted, he is portrayed as a savant whose skill set includes being easily able to learn languages, but that doesn't make this any less ridiculous. This is not like picking up on Spanish or Russian really quickly. This is fucking alien language. They do get some things right, like his compulsion to fix the chessboard when some douchebag bullies ruin it. So I will give them points for that. When Rory is introduced, he is dressed in a neat button-down shirt and slacks, and he's in some kind of lab where everybody is playing chess. A couple of bullies pull the fire alarm, which causes him to shut down while everyone else files out because loud noises bother him. And that is a very common thing when it comes to autistic people. The bullies approach him looking to eat some ass burgers.
Oh, shit. Looky Lou.
EJ, you hungry?
I'm hungry for an ass burger.
Sounds delicious. A nice, big, juicy ass burger.
But then they knock over the chess set, walk away after realizing Rory can't fight back, and there's no fun in it. Or something like that? I don't remember exactly. The fire alarm ends, Rory gets up, and to a twinkly piano and strings accompaniment, the kind of arrangement that is used every time the composer wants to say, "This person's super gifted, y'all," he arranges the chessboards back to the way they were. I'm going to nitpick this, keeping in mind that I'm pulling from my own personal experiences. I am well aware that there are other people on the spectrum who might identify with how Shane Black put this scene together. Autistic people do often have a problem with loud noises, but again, speaking personally, it's tied to our comfort in peaceful, orderly environments. In this scene, Rory's hands kind of float to his ears before he starts stimming. Any teacher worth a shit would make sure Rory was out the door with his fellow classmates. But I can let that go out of respect for dramatic convenience. Frankly, it is entirely possible that Rory's teacher is not worth a shit. Rory's bullies snarking about ass burgers, A, is definitely something that dickhead middle schoolers would do, so it gets a pass, and B, also calls back to a moment in Community when Troy chuckles for the same reason. But the difference is that in Community, it's not making fun of Abed for being autistic, it's just making fun of the word Asperger.
Well, you have Asperger's.
Asperger.
It's a serious disorder.
It really is.
So serious, why don't they call it meningitis? Asperger.
Because it sounds like ass burger. That's what they're laughing at. They're not making fun of someone, they're just laughing over the funny sounding word. I can buy Rory putting the chess pieces back the way they were, because it's presented as something we should be impressed with. And it is impressive, but that's where the problems start. See, considering what comes later, I can understand why Shane Black opted for an outsider's perspective on autism for this scene, as opposed to trying to get us inside of Rory's head. It is empathetic towards Rory's social struggles, and also comes off as, yeah, you should be impressed with these talents, and that those talents ultimately include a knack for understanding languages and tech, like the ones the Predators use. However, in doing so, it makes it a lot harder to understand and thus identify with Rory. Shane Black kind of misses one of the biggest points of the struggles autistic people face in a neurotypical society, one that a more aware script might have been able to tie into the film. When I first saw this movie, I was initially happy with the portrayal of autism, but in hindsight, I think that's actually because it's so tone-deaf. This movie is so hell-bent on portraying autism in a positive light, and to the point of it being like a superpower, that it doesn't really touch on the negative side of the disorder all that much. And ultimately, it comes off as pandering, above all else. I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10, because it does get some things right, but it's mostly bad. Alright, finally, we have Moose from The Fanatic, played by John Travolta. This is the most generic and yet simultaneously infuriating portrayals of autism I've ever seen. And it's even worse given how committed John Travolta's performance is.
Moose is in the house. Moose is in the house. Watch out. Watch out. Here's Moosey.
He put his whole ass into this performance, and I respect him for it. I don't blame him. I blame the script. What it feels like happened is that the writer Googled symptoms of autism and did no further research. Now, when you Google autism symptoms, this is what you get. See that first one? Inappropriate social interaction? Moose's first line of dialogue in this movie is, "I can't talk very long, I have to poop."
Hey, Aaron. Chocolate mousse. I can't talk too long. I gotta poo.
Need I say more? Yes, I do. What in the actual fuck? It genuinely just feels like they took that list of symptoms of autism and made it into a series of bullet points and made it and just checked off each one and called it a day. I don't know whose idea it was to have an autistic horror villain. I don't blame them for trying, because it's a concept that could be done well given the proper creative team. But this portrayal is as insulting as it is basic, and it ultimately, probably unintentionally, sends the message that autistic people are a danger to themselves and others and should be feared. Even though this movie gets stuff right, it does so at such a superficial level that I can't even give it points for that. I'm giving this one a 1 out of 10. Thank you all for indulging me in trying something a little different this week. Let me know what you think down in the comments, especially if you also have autism. Let me know what portrayals weren't included. Sorry, when I say this, I mean fictional characters. I'm not talking about Rain Man, because that's based on a real person. What other fictional characters do you think are really good portrayals of autism? Or what fictional characters do you think are bad portrayals of autism? Let me know down in the comments. I am always down to be exposed to new takes on it, good or bad. Like and subscribe and all that. If you don't like the video, tell me why. Try to be constructive, and in this case, try to be sensitive. And then subscribe anyway. You'll be notified when I upload a new video. Watch that and tell me why that one sucks, or where I've improved. Tell me what you like and don't like about it. That's all for now. Stay safe in these crazy times.